The following is intended only for mature audiences. Viewer discretion advised.
My name is James Kaiser.
Commander Negron.
Kevin Hogan.
Hi, I'm XXX Carter, and this is Kyber Cave.
Watching Kyber Cave.
Kyber Cave.
Kyber Cave.
After Dark.
Aren't they Cthulhu? Yes, they are. Oh, who's a cute little eldritch horror?
Hey! We only got like half of.
Oh, look, I'm not the one cosplay today.
I know it's usually always you.
Face reveal. Face reveal. Face reveal. Face reveal.
Oh, it's
Josh.
not Rhodey. I was expecting Don Cheadle under there.
You should have known I wasn't roadie by how
Well, you know, prosthetics and all that. God. What is up, William?
Hello.
Oh, I hear Saber going off.
the war is over.
William was the winner of our last Saber. So, in fact, we are getting William's Saber packaged up tomorrow and mailed out to his house so that he can play with his brand new baby. Ike, what is cracking lacking, my friends?
And if you guys haven't gotten a saber, you guys definitely need to get a saber. I got mine.
Yeah. Josh was a winner as well. Steve Jordan, how are you doing? So good to see. Wow, we got a lot of East Coasters online. We seem to be more popular in the East Coast than we are on the West Coast.
Oh, we'll change that.
Oh, yes, thank you.
I believe it.
We got Starforge Sabers in the house. Be sure to look out. I know Jim's got something brand new in mind coming to Starforge. Oh, and they're doing a giveaway soon too. If I think they reach a couple more subscribers, he is giving away a Darth Revan saber. So make sure to check out Starforge Sabers. How's everybody doing this week? Look at Ezra. Ezra looks all sinister in his like suit, in his like red glow.
I just got off of work.
He's looking very dapper.
Yes,
I like that. I like the vest. I like the tie. I think it's very clean and classy. Do it more often. I'm over here looking like a fucking scrub in my goddamn tank top.
Dude, you're using.
I don't care.
You're
Rock
usually the
that
one
shit.
outclassing all of us.
I mean, come on, I can go.
Occasionally, I have to take a break.
Don't you dare put on the banana hammock.
I said a suit, you dickhead.
Do it.
Fuck you.
I want to say hello to Kevin Hogan, our producer on Saber Rattle, just jumped on, and I saw somebody else's name up here that jumped on. I thought maybe I'm wrong. Was it Saber Ball?
Mike
What's
Blake
up, Saber Ball? Saber Ball is in a fan. We are happy to see you all. We have an interesting one tonight. This is I pretty much say this was all your topics, right, Anthony? X-Men. Or no, X-Men was your husband's idea, right? It was good talking to you.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Thanks for coming out tonight, Anthony.
That's my show, folks.
See y'all next week. Bye.
Oh, nice little sound effect in there.
What happened?
That was my phone.
That was
Sorry, I'll turn it down.
It chimed in right at the right time. So the X-Men idea was Eli's idea tonight, right?
Yes.
Okay. I was like, is it just me, or I feel like every time I ask you a question, you drop out? And then the XXX, that one's going to be an interesting conversation. That was your idea. So all the topics tonight came from your house.
Yeah, I'm kind of crazy like that. Go figure.
Woohoo!
Hey,
The only thing extra about me tonight is my hair.
Hey, I came up with topics too, and you guys turned them down.
What topics did we turn down?
Boxers, the briefs, the classics, Jesus.
Oh, no. We didn't turn them down. I said things can be incorporated in. The only idea I keep hearing you promote is you being in a banana hammock. That's
what the fans want to see.
Really, because I see all guys online
That's
right now.
That's what I want to see.
Oh, God, he's going to get the banana hammock. Run!
No!
Ah! Do it!
Oh, well,
yes, tonight's after Dark X is the theme.
My tank top.
No.
Dude, what is this turning into a strip club? This is not
All
what
right,
this is,
let's
guys. When we said after dark, this is not what we meant, y'all.
Yeah, that's right. Go for it.
Oh shit, bro!
Josh,
Saber
sorry,
Paul just
but-
confused the fuck out of me for a second. About
Oh my
Ezra
God.
no longer being the Flash. Wait, hold up. I was the Flash?
I'm really scared that Josh's camera went off.
I don't know.
My computer just glitched out. Everybody
Yeah.
calm down.
I
Boy,
was
who's gonna-
afraid you were changing your clothes.
I was so scared for a second. for my
I said if
computer.
he took
So yes,
put on banana hammock, I would.
Dude, why is the only person who's excited to see me in a banana hammock is
Anywho, let's get back to task.
I'm not saying I'm not excited for it. I just don't want it on the show.
yeah, and I am not a
Okay,
gay
well,
man.
then you can private message.
Says otherwise.
Yeah, Ezra Miller. That was another interesting. That was one of the things we debated. That I put up on the list for a conversation, possible conversation tonight too. The whole drama with Ezra Miller. Let's get into our topic, and then maybe we'll swing back around to the Ezra Miller because I'm sure we'll be talking about other news in the comic verse. But Anthony, the topic for tonight is X-Men. What was your idea about X-Men? What about X-Men did you want to explore? I actually, right before the show, I went on and found a video of the 10 worst X-Men ever. So I have some thoughts as well.
so all of the X-Men?
Okay. So shush your face. Shut your mouth. Shut that whore mouth. Okay, so X-Men, what I was saying was that everyone should pick their favorite and then explain as to why that's their favorite. Because everybody has one, and there's like one for everyone for sure. There's plenty of X-Men I've never heard of. There's plenty of X-Men that other people don't know of. And there's plenty of X-Men that like I'm just like, oh my God, they're amazing. And people go, huh? Who's that? Because they haven't been in a movie. So
Right, and
that's where I was coming from. Like, what X-Men was your favorite and why?
Well, to go in the opposite direction, I'm liking Jim's answer right there. That is, I agree with Jim. Jim says freaking Dazzler is the worst, hands down.
I would say Jubilee is the worst.
Except in the side-scrolling arcade game, Dazzler's fucking a badass. That one.
No, Jubilee is the worst because all she does is she does pyrotechnics. She should be at a fucking Skrillex show.
Wait. Dazzler.
See, that's the same as Dazzler, right? But I think with Jubilee, she actually shoots fireworks, whereas Dazzler just does colors and light, correct?
She does, but here's the thing. So Dazzler was around when the arcade game came out, which had Colossus, Wolverine, Storm, her, and Nightcrawler, right? Like that was a big thing back in the early 90s. And then the cartoon came out, and instead of having Dazzler, they had Jubilee, which is very much kind of the same character, but not. Like different character design, fireworks versus like light colors, which, okay, subtle differences there. But they did it as a new character to kind of like bring the audience into the fold of things and learn things as they go along, right? Like that's what we always do. We bring in an ingenue character that we can, as the audience, relate to. And here was this little cookie hot girl who wanted to play video games that her shit sparked off, and there she goes. Like that's the trade-off. But otherwise, they're kind of the same character.
But you see, Ike is absolutely right. Dazzler can actually create lasers and hurt people. Jubilee, on the other hand, literally just creates a plasmoid light show.
Dazzler is a much more badass character than by far.
Wait, but Jubilee can't like make explosions or anything? I thought that was part of the pyrotechnic thing she could do.
She can't create necessarily explosions. She just creates an explosion of light. That's it. She blinds people. Yeah. Literally, she should be tripping balls on acid while in the back of a fucking Skrillex or a Deadmau5 concert.
Okay.
Yeah,
Bailey
that
Hopkins
was my saber.
Hands down.
What was that?
Bailey Hopkins.
Cheers, everybody.
Dazzler's very underrated.
Bailey Hopkins is the worst X-Men ever.
Who's Bailey Hopkins?
She's
Exactly.
basically okay, so she was on every mutant thing. She was on X-Force. She was on what was the other ones? I don't remember any of the other ones. Josh, help me out here.
I'm sorry. Say that again.
Was she in the X-Men Next Generation
my brain for a second.
Yeah, she was in every mutant comic book for the X-Men universe. And she was basically a human bomb. She could explode her body once. That's right. Once.
What, like once in a battle or once in...
So what's the difference between her and the one from Deadpool? What was that, Teenage Mega Bomb or whatever her fucking name was? I never heard of it.
No. Bailey Hopkins, all she had was one explosion and she was dead.
And it wasn't
she was a suicide bomber.
Well, the thing is that I know who you're talking about. And the thing is it wasn't even a apocalyptic explosion. It couldn't basically kill anything. And that's when Professor X and like 3 different comics would have to find a way of bringing her back to life.
Right.
After she exploded.
Hey, really quickly.
Like a useless character for sure.
It's
about the best X-Men, not the ones that suck. Can we get on to that?
Okay, yes, but really quickly, I would like to explore what Saber Paul is talking about over here. Does anybody else think that X-Men is sexist?
I personally think that Saber Paul is fake woke.
No.
Wow.
Oh, damn.
I'm not in the business.
Do you know Saber Paul?
Hey, I'm not in the business of being fucking nice.
He is our conservative.
I mean, I'm the fucking drag queen. I'm pretty goddamn brutal. That was rude, but whatever. Even so, no, I don't think that you and Anthony because some of the most powerful mutants in the entire universe. So don't threaten me with a good time. Anywho, what I was saying. Some of the best X-Men in the entire universe have been the female characters. So it's hard for me to believe that X-Men in itself is sexist.
Yeah, I think...
nobody's going to comment on that?
I think Deadpool Deadpool made a joke about that at the beginning of Deadpool 2 or something like that when he was trying to come up with the name for X Factor or whatever.
X-Force?
X-Force, yeah. Yeah, no, you know, one of the things that I do know...
Storm and Dark Phoenix.
Right. Dark Phoenix has a
my diamond.
Fantastic.
My diamond.
No, Saber Paul. I also got the joke too. Jesus.
X-Men though has been really actually kind of on the forefront. Like, wasn't the idea of X-Men kind of like it was supposed to be about just people that were different in general. It was during like
gay
the 70s.
Analogy.
All right, and I think there was also a Jewish analogy.
Gay analogy.
Or gay analogy. Okay, yeah. Because when did the X-Men first come out?
Oh shit! Are you talking about the first comic book?
Oh god, like the 60s.
Ever?
Well, it was around the 60s, right? Because
I mean, it didn't hit its popularity or its stride until the 90s, late 80s.
Right.
So it existed before then.
Right.
Gay people.
Technically, X-Men
there's
was
a lot of analogy between gay people and X-Men.
Yeah, technically, the first X-Men actually came out in the early 1950s, and that was actually Beast. He showed up in a few superhero comics, but he wasn't considered an X-Man.
Was it just him by himself?
It was him helping other heroes, but it was Stan Lee not knowing what to do with him. So Beast and Wolverine actually made an appearance a couple of comic books later, but nobody knew what to do with him. Right. So that's when Stan Lee came up with the idea of the X-Men.
Right.
1963.
And as great as Beast is as a character, like he's not the best one, not by far.
Well, that could be the foundation of what kind of got the ball rolling with some of the other people. Some of the other ideas. Now, I want to go back as well. I've seen some people online talk about who their favorite were El Soria said somebody that I didn't recognize, and I know that's your husband. And then there was somebody else.
Eli? Storm? You don't recognize Storm?
No, there was a. I didn't see.
I love you, Saber Paul.
That was okay.
My question.
That's Storm. Or Aurora Monroe.
Storm. Aurora Monroe is Storm's actual name.
Okay, Storm is pretty badass.
Yeah, I love you, Saber Paul. I look forward to killing you soon.
5 meters, yeah.
Jim says Gambit is his favorite. Forge. Who is Forge? Mike White was talking about Forge.
Okay, I have a question. I know who Forge is, but I do have a quick question. Ezra, you can pull up videos on here, right?
Yes.
Okay, I would look up the EX Men, and it's done by forgot his fucking name. He's a comedian, and it's where it's spoof videos of Professor X firing each individual X-Men, and the worst he's about is on Angel.
I've seen this.
And Cyclops. I can tell Cyclops what we should have done is you were a sign from God that he does not love us. We should have cut your head off, signed, sealed, delivered, back to sender. And then he ends up firing Angel, and he goes, "Sorry, Angel, what is your power again?" And he goes, "Well, I fly." And he just starts laughing his ass off. And he goes, "You know how many X-Men actually have an internal power and can fly? You literally have fucking bird wings. You're a fucking bird." X-Men is fucking funny.
Right. What we'll have to check that out. We'll see. How long is that video?
45 minutes.
Who is everyone's favorite and why? We got plenty of comments. I'm asking you guys who are here on the video, who's your favorite X-Men, and explain yourself.
Are we talking about the X-Men universe only, or are we talking about superheroes that came and fought with the X-Men and became honorary X-Men?
Oh, man. Hey, Scott Brewer, what is up? Good to see you here, my man. I don't recognize Scott often coming online. Matt Torres out in Texas. Thank you. It's good to see you too. So who's going first? I'm seeing people in the comments talking about their favorite X-Men. Who do you guys like?
I would have
the hot topic.
I know who mine is, and that would have to be what's her damn name? Emma Frost. She's besides Juggernaut, who can actually kill her. She's pretty much not killable, and no psychic can actually touch her. Period.
Right, because they can't read her thoughts because she can turn into Diamond, right?
And in all technicalities, the movie where she appeared and Juggernaut almost cracks her fucking neck open is a lie, because Juggernaut is powerful, but he's not that powerful. And Emma Frost actually has a lot more powers than what they showed in the fucking bougie ass fucking film they did.
Saber Paul says my favorite X-Men is Caitlyn Jenner.
Shut up.
That makes sense. Saber Paul, let me show you my claws.
Yes, Ike says the White Queen. Ezra, do you have a favorite?
Snicketa. That's what that sound effect was.
I personally like Cyclops.
Snicketa.
Cyclops. Wow. Okay. How come you like Cyclops? That's when you don't. Well,
because he can turn anyone into ash just literally by opening his visor.
Technically, that's actually not true. In no comic book ever, and in no way, shape, or form ever, besides in movies.
You would have done that to Wolverine a long ass time ago.
And Wolverine
can regenerate from a single cell, just like
this is Wolverine's power. He fucking flails.
Wow. So okay,
Wolverine's the most overrated X-Men by far.
Let's explore Ezra's answer a little bit. How come you've because he blows shit up with his eyes? First off, okay, somebody explain, because I don't know, I don't know a lot of the X-Men backstory. He's always had this like laser shooting out of his eyes, so if he opens his eyes at all with no glasses, he's shooting lasers, right?
Yeah.
Pretty much, yes.
So how was he born?
Yes.
Does he?
After
No, he
acquiring
was
it.
not born with it. It was a mutation that slowly started affecting him. I think it affected him in high school, if I'm not mistaken.
It in the movie it affects him in high school. In the comic books, it
an
actually
analogy
affects him
for
when
being
he
gay.
is.
God damn it! It doesn't happen until like puberty.
Yeah, technically Cyclops' powers in the movie happened in high school, but in the actual lore, it happened when he was 22. And he actually killed somebody.
Wow.
Never read the X-Men.
Shocker. Although, how did he survive the plane crash?
Well,
We
because
have this, by the way. This is our X-Men.
He was actually kissing his girlfriend in the original storyline and in the lore, and when he opened his eyes, he fried his face off.
Oh, snaps. That was like his first time getting the ability or something?
Oh my God, Jim, that is a low blow, bro.
Put a pin in that. Get back to me.
Yeah, so real quick, Anthony, real quick. Jim Moscatello, Magneto was the first one who almost cracked Emma Frost's diamond skin. Get the movie right. Actually, I did get the movie right because I'm not talking about that movie. I'm talking about in the cartoon when Juggernaut actually almost snaps her neck with his bare hands by cracking her diamond face open, which is actually not possible.
Which cartoon?
There was actually I forgot what it's called, but it's basically every superhero and every single villain
Evolution or
end up fighting each other to see who the ultimate person is. It ends up being the Hulk, of course. He ends up being the strongest of everybody and kills everybody, including he ends up killing Wolverine by getting so mad he was able to break every adamantium bone in his body and left him for dead.
Damn. William is
Except
saying
for
Rogue.
Old Man Logan.
What are you trying to hypnotize people, Ezra?
I mean, Rogue is okay.
Rogue and then Nightcrawler. Nightcrawler's actually been one of my favorites. Okay, Anthony, I want to ask you really quick because this is not something I knew about. I guess I could kind of see it when you look at Cyclops as a character, but I did not know Cyclops was, of course. Oh, no. Ezra popped off. I did not know Cyclops was an allegory for coming out or being gay.
He's
as
not
a character.
No. What I was saying is that the X-Men in general is an allegory for being gay, and a lot of them get their mutant powers in puberty, which is part of where that comes from. The social backlash of being a mutant rather than embracing their gifts is where that comparison comes apart. Right. The best example, of course, is in the X-Men 2 movie with Iceman. There's a lot there, and then of course they then retconned Iceman to actually be gay, which is also a fun factor. But it's the whole thing that it's something that's deeply encoded in you on a genetic level, that it's something you can't help and that manifests itself later in life and then makes people around you, the general society, hate you for it. Like, that's where the allegory comes around. And so let's say that like gay people are superpowered, but I will say I've never heard the whole backstory of Cyclops about like frying his first girlfriend with a kiss. What I will say is that Rogue's backstory certainly falls in that line with her first boyfriend, Cody.
Rogue ended up killing her boy. She, not in the film, but in the comic book, she ended up killing her boyfriend by just having sex with him.
Wow.
Now, when it comes to the allegory of it being about
There's a difference.
about gay people and stuff. I have heard that one before. I have no problem with gays whatsoever. I mean, hell, I used to be. I'll be honest. But Stan Lee actually came out in a press conference and was asked about that, and he stated, "No, it's about everybody who has differences in their lives."
Right?
Yeah,
because I thought I had heard in like an interview or something.
That's fine.
Because what being the gay thing, I did hear about that, but I had thought that there was also something about having Jewish father, and one of the other writers they were talking about, being Jewish in America and stuff like that, and so X-Men was kind of an allegory for being an outsider in general,
Yes, and
which encompassed a lot of different groups at that time period.
Yes, and Stan Lee did mention, yes, it does have to do with gays. It has to do with people with PTSD. It has to do with anybody who's a form of an outsider, like you stated. He said, but the whole allegory of it's just about, gay people, that's not true. He made it for outsiders like us three. He made it for us.
Fair.
We're superheroes in our own way.
You got it, Tony?
And even like the ties to Judaism was more of a thing from the first movie, because Magneto's initial character wasn't about him being someone from the concentration camps. But when they made that part of his character in the movie, it worked very well because it gave us this sense of compassion. It gave us this like deeper, harder background for why Magneto feels the way he does, right? Like that's where that's a switch. So while I'll give up the point that, it wasn't initially made to be a gay allegory. People have certainly taken that from it about being the outsider. That much is very true. For sure. But it's not one particular one.
Yeah, I mean, but also in the comic books, it does explicitly, because they did come out with a Magneto solo comic series, because everybody wanted to know the different X-Men's backstories. And Magneto's backstory was that he was, part of Nazi Germany. He was a Jew, and it wasn't just his mother got killed. It was.
When was that comic though?
I don't remember the year, but I know they came out with it because I used to actually have it when I was a kid, and it was actually one of the comics that was rated.
So I'm guessing that would have probably been in the 90s then. Sounds like that would have been about when were you born, Josh?
I was born in 1990.
Yeah, so that'd have been in the 90s or 2000. If you were reading it, you probably would have been anywhere from 5 to 10 years old. Yeah, 2000s comic.
That sounds like 2000s.
Yeah, it was either mid to late 1990s or early 2000s. I don't remember. All I know was that it was rated R. It was a rated R comic book, and they really didn't want kids to read it. I had to convince my uncle to buy it for me.
Right.
Because it shows his parents getting.
What'd you say, Ezra?
Okay.
2009.
Ezra coming in with the facts.
Yep. That's after the movie. After the movie. That's when they made that part of his story.
Either way, it was a nasty story because you got to see Magneto's parents get fucking
absolutely. But that's what I mean is that gave a lot of credence to Magneto's character, right? Like that was a thing that they can retcon and say, hey, we're going to tie it to this historic event where people can really empathize with persecution and why someone would have the mindset that he does, right?
Right.
Because before the movie, that did not exist. That was not in the original comics. Just like the original comics might not have been a gay allegory, but like as soon as the whole Iceman thing happened, kind of started to become that. I mean, we have the gay first wedding issue I just showed you a second ago.
Right.
But back to what we were saying earlier, with Rogue is my personal favorite. I absolutely love Rogue as a character, and I had her graphic novel spin-off series when I was a kid, and that was the one where again Cody did not die; he was put in a coma. He was in a permanent comatose state, and the whole story was around the crux that she took a yearly visit away from the X-Men estate to go visit him because of how guilty she felt. And then that turned into this whole side story with her and Gambit and the externals and this whole thing going on in Louisiana. And it was epic. It was epic and brilliant and amazing. It totally gave her backstory to the rest of us and then ended with Cody dying. That's where Cody really, truly died. But I love her. Again, she's the only mutant that can absorb anybody's ability and use it. So she literally has the potential for everything. And she has this tragic backstory where she can't touch anyone she loves physically because it's something she can't control. She literally can't control anything about this thing. she's so fucking strong and badass, can fly and like knock the shit out of people because of her whole backstory with Mystique and Carol Danvers. Like, there's so much deep-rooted, awesome stuff about Rogue that the movie fucked her up because it never gave her that potential, or why she was so badass in the '90s show for the cartoon.
Right. Yeah, Rogue is definitely a tough character to beat.
Well, in the Stan Lee even talked a lot about Rogue because a lot of people were mad because they were like, why can't she control her powers? But if you look back at some of her solo comic books, she actually does end up learning how to control her powers. And the reason Stan Lee made her that way for so long, where she couldn't, she just couldn't touch anybody, was to show that people with certain diseases that don't go away, like, fibromyalgia or autoimmune disease, cancer, that they're always going to have it. But they're still superheroes in their own right. And that's why they made Rogue. Now, eventually he did make it to where she could control her powers. It was kind of like he actually made it for a child who combated cancer and ended up going into remission. And they didn't think this child was going to go into remission. They thought they were going to die within a year. And he made that comic book for this little girl. And it was kind of, Rogue was kind of a mirror image of that little girl, how finally Rogue was able to control, who she can be, basically a power vampire for. Right. And finally Rogue was able to find love. She doesn't end up getting with Iceman like everybody thought. She ends up getting with another mutant, and I don't remember who it was.
That was Gambit.
Yeah, but it was actually a very, very sweet gesture.
Gambit was always for Mossberry.
Yeah, but it was a very sweet gesture, of Stan Lee to do that for that little girl, and everybody was happy because Rogue was finally able.
And when did that happen, though?
That happened in mid 2000s.
So again, like a decade and a half after her character had been established, for sure. It's part of that arc, right? Like the one fallible thing about her.
Right.
Accomplished.
If you go to the X-Men comic books today,
I don't think it's the crux of her character, though.
Yeah, but if you go to her X-Men comics today, her single X-Men comic books where it's just her, she can control her powers, but in the regular X-Men, she still can't control her powers because they wanted to keep that mystique about her. Like, when was she able to control her powers? Why can't she control her powers in the X-Men universe, but she has a solo where she can? So, but then sadly, God rest Stan Lee, he wasn't able to finish it.
Right. I've seen a couple people talking about Gambit here on the side. And I know just from personal experience, when I used to be a big toy collector. Yeah, Gambit is a favorite of a lot of fans. Why do you think so many people love Gambit?
I mean, he's an oddball. I mean, he taps into kinetic energy of anything. I mean, hell, he can throw a fucking piece of, he can throw a piece of fucking ham and fucking killing you.
Right. It's his charm and his accent, and then he's able to charge up any object he touches, which again, kind of very similar to Dazzler before they discontinued her. But Gambit was a great foil to someone like Rogue. He was very charismatic. He was very debonair, and he was kind of more like the street rat of the group, right? Like he always had that dark, seedy, underside part of him. He was the card player. He was the gambler, Joker of sorts.
He was very suave.
And I think that again, he was, and one of the big allures again with him was his dynamic with Rogue, and then also how they brought him into like the fighting series, the Cajun accent again. But like, okay, so like X-Men versus Street Fighter. Did anybody play that?
Yeah,
I know of it. I did not play it.
Yeah, so he was a major powerhouse. And then also Marvel versus Capcom 2, some of the greatest fucking fighting games. So between that, the comics, his relationship with Rogue there was such a great character dynamic with him that he became a charismatic person, regardless of how like special or different his powers were, because he was just another person who could throw a bomb. He charges up something, he throws a bomb. Cyclops same. He lifts his visor, he shoots a bomb. There wasn't necessarily as much nuance with the characterization.
Right. You know, the other character I liked a lot was Angel.
I see.
And Angel was definitely a different character.
I liked Angel too.
Really quickly, what's up, John? So happy to see you.
And I'm not talking about Angel, the one with the wings. I'm talking about Angel. She also had another name in the movies. She had actually like 4 different names, but she was the one in Deadpool.
Oh, you're talking about the one from Deadpool.
Yeah, and she had an Angel. She had like 4 other different.
Wasn't it Angel Dust? I thought that was Angel Dust.
Well, it started off with Angel. They named her Angel Dust, and then they switched her name in a comic book, and then there was a TV series cartoon where they changed her name again. But they made it to where, you know, it showed females who were beautiful, that they weren't like Juggernaut. They didn't have to like, you know, they weren't all metal and shit. She was just naturally this big, strong,
were there not powerhouse females that were also beautiful.
Yeah, like because
again, Storm was mentioned earlier. Storm's an fucking amazing X-Men.
Storm is absolutely
Rogue.
wonderful. What I'm
She's like Juggernaut.
What I'm saying is that they finally made an X-Men with Angel Dust where she has no particular like, you know, storm power or any particular like mental power.
Physically strong.
Just physically just a badass. You know, I mean, she took on the strongest X-Men, which is Juggernaut, and
so
almost kicked
Wonder
his ass. Pretty much.
Yeah, she's more. I would say she's more like She-Hulk or something. Wouldn't you?
Yeah,
she's just a really strong woman.
And She-Hulk's probably more popular.
Yeah.
Right.
When was Juggernaut an X-Men?
Was Juggernaut
ever X-Men?
Was he in the Brotherhood?
He's always been an antagonist, but there was 2 comic books where he actually switched sides. Now, granted, it was just to trick the X-Men, but he did actually become an X-Men.
All right.
John, are you a comic book fan?
When he became Joseph, which was like
yeah.
of himself.
Yeah, I mean, granted, Juggernaut is still a fucking villain, but he did end up getting the X-Men suit and everything like that, but it was just to trick the X-Men and, you know, ruin their mansion twice.
He just wanted the suit. Hey, John, did you read the X-Men at all?
Yeah, my 2 favorite comics, like mainstream comics, were Spider-Man, like all 3 Spider-Man titles, and the Uncanny X-Men.
So okay, so when would that have been? Would that have been what time period was the Uncanny X-Men? Was that in the 70s, 80s, 90s?
It was 80s.
80s? Okay.
That's when I was reading it, yeah. So and then I was I loved all the X-Men offshoots. Well, not all of them. I didn't once I started getting into X Factor, I wasn't that big. I liked New Mutants. New Mutants were new when I was an avid comic book reader. That was like a brand new comic, so I was reading that one from the first one.
Right.
So
right.
I don't know when that came out, but that will date me in terms of like when I was like an avid reader. But
so who's your favorite X-Men?
Well, I'm so vanilla. Wolverine was my favorite X-Men. He's just the fucking best. I mean, and the Wolverine.
Thank you, Ezra.
The Wolverine's single comics were, or solo comics were also. I also like those, and they did a couple like offshoot series for Wolverine that I thought were really good.
I don't know if you've read it yet, John, but they came out with a comic book that it was a solo for Wolverine. It was called Red, White, and Blood, and it came out last year, and it was the coolest Wolverine solo comic I've ever read in my life.
I haven't read any Wolverine. I haven't read any comics at all in a really long time. But so I'm not up on it at all. But as for a bit of lore, when I was reading, there was it was unknown whether was it Sabretooth was Wolverine's dad or not.
Oh.
What are they? Did they ever determine that? Did it ever get revealed?
They came out with a little thing in a comic book, and then obviously
We made brothers.
Sabretooth was a brother, but they subtly in the comic book, which is what you should be reading because that's the lore, is they subtly hinted at it. It still wasn't fully determined
that they're brothers.
Yeah, it wasn't fully determined yet, but then they went with it in the movie, and it was like everybody was so mad at that movie because it's like you guys just fucked that up because it's not even canon. Like that's not. We don't know if that's true yet.
The whole crux of their relationship is that they are so similar that they want to best each other. Like that's the thing between them, is that they're both feral and have healing powers, that they want to prove that they're better than one another. And Wolverine already has the disadvantage of being smaller between the two of them.
Ezra just put a little message up there about Victor Creed or whatever.
I'm gonna send Ezra something that just popped up onto my.
There's a number of animal-like abilities such as retractable claws, enhanced senses, and regenerative healing.
I mean, they're too close to not have been related, right? I mean, that's like
a lot of people for the longest time. Stan Lee would never hint at it.
Well, it's kind of like how Mystique's Rogue and Nightcrawler's mother, that feels like something that came in very after the fact.
Yeah, people would just
clearly Mystique has more to do with Rogue's actual true backstory than it does Nightcrawler. That was like a secondary thing.
I liked Rogue too. I always liked the tragedy of Rogue's character.
Right.
She had like just in terms of like character and storytelling. Yeah, she has a great story. But yeah, Wolverine's similar. I think Wolverine and Rogue are very similar. In terms of their tragedy at their core, which I
because
like.
Wolverine doesn't really age, so he can't attach to people.
In the first movie.
Now, one bigger one that you guys, a lot of argument has been going over is because I believe, I don't know if I'm right on this one, but I believe he showed up in the Uncanny X-Men. John, maybe you'll be able to answer this, but Azazel.
I don't remember who Azazel is.
They're saying that Azazel and Nightcrawler are actually family.
I'll have to look up who Azazel is. I don't
Azazel was the Red Nightcrawler, basically.
Yeah, he was. He was kind of like a demon or something, right?
Yeah, I know of him, but he's not relevant enough to care. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't remember. When did he come out?
He's just not.
He came out in comic books. I don't remember exactly when. Sadly, I know that he was in X-Men First Class, the movie.
Yeah, I know he's in one of the movies. What's up, Say Wong?
You did see him show up in comic books periodically, and everybody was like, wait a minute, now does Nightcrawler have a brother too? Like, what the hell's going on? But he was very few and far between. He would just pop up in random ass comic books for no damn reason. But he was like the coolest character when he was in that comic book.
What was the name of the? Oh, I remember, the Hellfire Club. I liked the Hellfire. Whenever the Hellfire Club was in, I always liked that too.
Yeah.
Scarlet Witch, was that? Who was that? Was was that who was a part of the Hellfire Club? Or
she was part of that.
They did a weird. That was like a weird cross.
Before the MCU took her over like a separate thing, she was always part of the X-Men.
Yeah, it was a weird crossover.
Magneto's daughter.
Yeah, but there's this whole like secret society, the Hellfire Club, right? Of like kind of like a magic-y kind of. Almost like Aleister Crowley, like people.
Yeah, let's see.
It's like the quarter bells of Batman. Like it's one of those things that there, but not a lot of people know about it.
So Wang, he said, anyone notice the Sentinel robot is similar to the Iron Man suit? Yeah, and honestly, I think in the comic books, it's because what was his name?
What? DC and Marvel did similar shit? Never.
Yeah,
Never.
Was it John?
Never.
Was it Jack Kirby that helped write the X-Men?
Yeah, the original series.
Yeah,
I would imagine.
I think it was Jack Kirby who basically just kind of took Iron Man and changed the artwork to look like a Sentinel. I've always hated Jack Kirby because he had no originality. Everything.
Okay, does anybody remember the card? There was a whole collector's card series of like Marvel everything.
Oh yeah,
like in 25-cent machines. And you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
there's a whole collectible card series, and all it did was give you this really awesome painting of a character with their stats on the back and like some general information about them. They did X-Men, they did everything Marvel, Spider-Man throughout everything else. They had holofoils, like it was a big thing.
Yeah, John would probably know, but actually, the game store in Fallon has every single card still packaged in the tins of the Uncanny X-Men playing cards.
Wow.
I don't know if I ever saw the cards.
Yeah, they actually had a whole, it was a booster box, but it was in a metal tin.
No, it was like a Marvel Masterpiece series. That's what it was called.
Wow.
But I was...
Am I tripping?
Growing up, I was a Marvel guy.
What?
I didn't hear that.
We keep having these breaks in conversation. I'm sorry. I feel like
Anthony keeps freezing.
Your internet is wanky over there, dude.
Yeah.
John, what were you saying?
Oh, just I was, when I was young, I was Marvel all the way, and they are specifically Spider-Man and Uncanny X-Men are the things closest to my heart. But when I became like a mid to late teenager is when I discovered all the Alan Moore stuff. And a lot of that was coming out while I was reading. So the original Sandman, like the Sandman #1 came out when I was an active reader. Hellblazer, came out when I was an active reader. And Hellblazer was my favorite for a long time. And, but all that stuff that came out of the Alan Moore Swamp Thing was just incredible. And also his Miracle Man. And of course, Watchmen. I mean, that all came out while I was
really into it.
That's my golden age of comics. And that's when I was reading actively. And that was,
Yeah, I got out of X-Men in the late 1990s. It was about 1999, 2000s. I still read them periodically, but I started getting into the Hellboy comics and the Hellboy omnibus.
I've read a few of those.
Yeah, the movie does. If anybody watching this, if you watch the Hellboy movies, that is shit compared to the actual comics and the books.
I think Ron Perlman did a pretty good job, though, of
I
capturing.
think he did phenomenal. I think the new Hellboy is shit.
Yeah,
I didn't see it.
But Ron Perlman, I think he did great. But it definitely left out way too much and way too much blood and the gore that Hellboy really is, and the great storytelling that Hellboy is.
Yeah, but I mean, the thing is like you're gonna like the thing about Hellboy and the thing about bringing something over like that is so hard is Hellboy had so many great individual stories, right? Yeah. It was always like each comic was like a story in and of itself, like a little novella.
Yeah,
and all the novellas all together created the character of Hellboy. He's like revealed kind of over time the way he interacts with the different creatures he has to hunt down and stuff. And just kind of crystallizing that into one movie is just never going to be satisfying, because there were so many cool things that happened throughout the different stories. That I really like the one with the like, was it like a demon baby he had to hold with the tongs, to hold it up by its ankle? And It's just like an image I remember of it. I read it so many years ago, but
I think that's probably why Marvel in particular has been so successful, and why I feel like the streaming platforms really are one of the better places for the comic book stories, is because with the Marvel movies, unlike the DC movies, all those movies feel like each movie stand alone, right? They're all doing their own thing over there. With the Marvel movies, they're so intertwined that it does feel like a comic book. It does feel like an ongoing story. That's why, I think the comic books are best served on the streaming platforms, where you can really examine a character over 8 episodes as opposed to a 2-hour movie.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I loved Hellboy so much that
uh-oh.
Let me just say about DC. All of their characters have their own standalone. Yes, there's the Justice League, but at the same time, most of their villains are the things that are the standout parts of what make those characters work. Marvel works well on the fact that it has great superheroes that all have really great internal workings, and really only a few of them have great villains. There's not a whole lot of great villains in the Marvel universe. There's a lot of ties together with each other because they all have a common grounded thing. Again, DC has made up cities that are like our cities, like Metropolis, like Gotham, whereas Marvel uses New York City. It utilizes Chicago, utilizes San Francisco. It exists in our world. It's not a separate multiverse thing of a parallel dimension.
Now, ladies and gents, before I'm going to say this before I have to go, because I do have to go pick up my girl. But Hellboy was actually one of my favorite comics, and I actually ended up meeting Ron Perlman, who played Hellboy in the original, which was amazing. It's in storage right now. I'm waiting to get it out.
One of my favorite movies.
But I do have the original gun with the light bullets, the hollow, the light up green light bullets that he shot on film at Samael.
Wow.
Yeah.
That
was the coolest damn thing I've ever gotten in my life, because that thing is gigantic. I mean, gigantic, and it does do the revolver action. I do have the bullets for it. I mean, it is cool.
You should definitely bring that on when you get it out.
Yeah, as soon as I get it out of storage, I just ended up getting a divorce and moving out. So,
I want to respond to Anthony about his assessment of the different companies. I think that what Marvel did every once in a while is they would have a villain who did stand up to the main character. Like, I think you're totally right. The Marvel stuff is all about imperfect people. Like, they have these things that make them special, but then that makes all these complications in their lives. And then you see all those complications unfold, and that makes them much more exciting as people and much more relatable as people. Whereas DC is just these icons that aren't really relatable as people.
They're gods.
Yeah, but but every once in a while they would do, like, I don't know if you guys remember when they had the Hunter. I can't remember his name. The guy who was the Hunter who was hunting Spider-Man, and they did it went over like 4 episodes. I don't remember his name.
Hunter.
Yeah,
is Raven?
Craven. Yeah.
Craven.
It's Craven.
Craven.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds more like it.
With a K.
Yeah, yes, there you go. And I thought that was really good. And also the Venom stuff that happened in the comics was also really great. That was a great villain. I'm trying to think of some other good villains. X-Men had the best villains,
Batman.
probably.
I did
What's
not
that?
yell at you, Steve.
Yeah,
Blaming
and
you for
that's
stuff
the
I
other
didn't
one.
do.
X-Men and Spider-Man have all of the great villains. Everybody else, name one. Name one. Other than Thanos or the ones you saw in the movies. there's really not a whole lot for Marvel when it comes
Red
to their
Skull,
Hydra.
Silver Surfer has good. Silver Surfer has good villains.
I'm just happy that they started making Moon Knight.
His creator.
Fucking Marvel character.
Sorry, I stepped all over the banana, Josh.
Dormammu?
Yeah, Moon Knight is definitely my favorite character, and I'm happy that he's finally getting a show and everything. So I'm excited to see where they go with him. But gents, ladies, everybody else who's listening, banana hammock out. I gotta go. Otherwise, I'm gonna get in trouble.
Take it easy,
well,
man.
actually, we're about to start closing out the show here too because your director is about to pass out. He's on 2 hours of sleep and he's been up since 7 in the morning.
Yeah,
That's so sad. Put on a banana hammock, grab a beer, and enjoy the show.
Ezra, we can take over the scrolls. It's a 2-hour show, bro.
Snap into a Slam Jam, Ezra.
Get a Red Bull. It gives you wings.
Yeah, man.
That's not gonna help.
You'll never make it in the industry with that kind of attitude.
All right, guys. I'll talk to you guys later.
Peace. Apocalypse. Say Wong says Apocalypse is a
You
good.
guys been up since 4 and it's going at 12, so suck it up.
All right. Well, we are almost at the hour mark anyway. Should we move to our next topic? We usually have like little video transitions, but we did not get a chance to do that this week. We're going to be better.
What's going on this week? Everybody seems all crazy. What's happening?
Yeah, I know. Everybody lost control this week.
What's going on with Ezra? Why does Ezra have no sleep?
I had like a random ass bomb off in Lodi. I don't know.
Ezra just started a new job. Ezra's not used to working long days again. That's why he's all dressed up all fancy.
I didn't notice. Was he fancy?
Well, he's less fancy now than he was at the top of the show. At the top of the show, he had his tie on.
What's he doing? What's the new job?
Are you just gonna sit backstage?
Sunglasses Hut.
I work at Sunglass Hut in the Solano Mall. So
Sunglass Hut. Wow.
Yeah.
That brings me back. I haven't heard that name in ages.
It's not a lot of work, honestly. It reminds me a lot of working at Kyber Cave. At least, when we're not moving into a warehouse and getting a bunch of shipments in.
Store or kiosk?
Store.
Yeah, retail is retail.
Yeah, retail's a bummer.
Sunglass Hut's more pretty much cleaning, making sure no one steals anything, and waiting for people to come in. And obviously helping out customers if they need help. But a lot of people who go into Sunglass Hut are just kind of like, leave me alone. I'll find what I want. I'll let you know if I want to buy it.
Yeah, that was always like the thing here is when you walk in, I can't stand when anybody approaches me in a store at all. I hate it. And here, every time you walk into a store, they're like, coming up to you and talking to you, asking you what you want and everything. And I just feel like I'm getting the hard sell every time. And I
approach me like I work there. So trust, I feel the frustration.
But hey, not to move too far off, but actually now that we're talking about this is something I'm interested in because of retail. Isn't in Korea and Asian countries in general, don't they take their retail jobs more seriously than say like how we do here? Like everything is always folded and nice and neat and very presentable, whereas American stores are a little more trash. People, the attendants don't care as much, I guess.
I would say it's just a matter of degree. It's not like there's like some, like you go into a store here and everything is perfect, and people are people everywhere in the world. So, you're talking about teenagers working in retail. Are they going to be perfect? No, they're not going to be perfect. And so, but it's definitely, when you see like a Walmart in America with shit strewn all over the floor and all that kind of shit, definitely not anything like that.
Do you guys have Karens in Korea?
Yeah, sure. I mean, so we call middle-aged women
Are there
are
bitchy
called
customers
ajumas,
everywhere? Yeah.
and so
Ajima?
ajumas, yeah,
Does
ajumas.
that translate to anything, or is that just
It
a
means
name?
like middle-aged woman. And ajashi is for man, so I'm an ajashi.
But is it like the same type of person that seems to be self-entitled and thinks that they're better than other people, or is it a slightly different stereotype of a?
Well, it's the thing is what's different here is that it's an ajima is like a class of people in Korea. It's like if you are an ajima or an ajashi, you get certain privileges because of the nature of the Confucianism society, where like older people have certain like amount of respect, and
Right.
they can just kind of tell people what to do. Like I can, if the younger people are doing something, if they're not like giving up their seat to an old person or something like that, I can just go up to them and say, hey, what are you doing? Give up your seat. And they just like listen to me because I'm old. I don't really exercise that power very often, but I've done it a couple times when I've seen some like old lady, standing with their bow legs, and some kid is pretending not to see by looking at his phone or pretending to sleep. I'll say, get up.
And do they? Like, even though they don't know you?
Yes, they do. Oh, yeah,
wow.
Yeah, sure. Nobody, like, generally speaking, you're not going to have anybody be like confronting you if you're older, like saying something bad to you or going against you. So, but being a foreigner, it's more likely that would happen to me.
About most Asian culture.
Yeah, but the problem is that like you get into like it's by its nature, because it's old people are more respected. By its nature, it's more conservative of a culture and doesn't change as quickly or easily. So that's, I would say, is the negative side effect of that.
Oh wow! Hey, really quickly, I want to say what's up to Belle Burns, Miss Disney Princess. And I want to say what is up to Distance Nerding. I know you guys are driving right now. You can't see I'm wearing my Distance Nerding shirt right now.
Yeah, I did that last week. I did their show last week. It was great fun.
Woo-hoo. Oh, we love those guys. They're driving up to Boise right now.
Tank top because it's hot.
Yeah, so thank you for tuning in, Distance Nerding and Belle Burns. We were just taking a little side. I don't know how we got talking about it, but it just occurred to me that, like, wow, I wonder if there are Karens in Korea. And but that's interesting. That
it's After Dark. We don't ever stay on topic. Come on.
That's true. We often veer off of course quite often. Our next topic, though, should we move into the next big topic here?
Yeah.
Wait, what's the topic?
This is going to be interesting. Go ahead with this one, Anthony. I'd love to hear Ezra's ideas on this too. He's about passing out over there.
So I'd mentioned last week about how I'm pretty sure it was. Anyway, about how currently our current day climate of adult entertainment films, pornography, if you would, are kind of veering into this very sketchy, stranger way than what it was. Like, I remember growing up, and granted, I was exposed to pornography at a very young age, and it was because I had a friend's older brother be like, hey, you want to see this? But regardless, like the pornography back in the day, like especially I grew up in like the American Pie day, where like you saw the sketchy extra channel that didn't really come through. We had a lot more of like the pop culture being about like the pizza delivery guy with the extra sausage, or the pool guy who's
the plumber
looking to clean, the pool, or the plumber who's looking to fix the pipes. Like, it was always these like handyman or like extra people that were somewhat believable scenarios in a fantasy realm, where like, oh, it's this stranger I interact with and I'll just fuck randomly. And now it's switched to a very darker, deeper sense of I'm concerned for people, because it's a lot of like, I'm fucking the priest, or I'm screwing my stepdad, or I'm sleeping with the scoutmaster,
the babysitter.
Like, it's a lot of weird. Yeah, it's crossed the line where it's like not something that I feel is healthy, but like clearly is becoming commonplace, and it's creating this chasm of like, this is the thing that we should find hot, and it scares me. Like, I've had so many people that are younger than me say like, oh yeah, when I was 16 I was hooking up with guys that were like 40 on Grindr, and I'm like,
wow,
the fuck, what why? Like, your parents let you just go out randomly when you were 16 and hook up with strangers? Like, I couldn't get away with anything when I was a younger kid. I was so goody two-shoe, like, tight-laced kid. There was no way. Like, the fact that I got away with smoking weed with my mom for as long as I did, which was after I turned 18 until I was about 19, mind you. And the only way that like she didn't fuck me over is because she was also a stoner. So that's the big difference. But like, I don't know. Like, today, it's weird. It's weird watching people with hookup culture, with the apps that you get on your phone. Like, I never grew up with any of that, and so I can't really relate to it. But like, the people who are younger than me that talk to me and tell me these things, it's to me bizarre and scary and weird.
You
and
know
I
what?
just look at it and go, why?
I wonder if our tastes have changed over time, or if these tastes have always been there, but it's just we haven't had the technology to hook up with like-minded people, right? Like, you know, like I think it's interesting that it wasn't one of the very first pieces of film to ever come out was porn, right? Like, as soon as we could start making cameras and movies, we were making porn. That was something that we were, yeah, right. So
I mean, I'm not surprised, but
right, but so I mean, obviously, sexuality is something that is very important to human beings. I mean, as an animal, right? I mean, just like any other animal on this planet, we're here to reproduce and to make more of ourselves. So I can understand how the sexual drive.
However, there's a huge difference from looking at like 100 years ago, where there was like grown men marrying 13-year-olds, and it was because the average life expectancy was 34. You know, people back then looked at like, okay, you come to maturity when you become pubescent.
Right.
And again, different time, different age. Weird to think that the founding fathers were probably like 19, because that's my guess.
Romeo and Juliet were like 13 and 14, weren't they?
Didn't have the same life expectancy now. Yeah, exactly. There's a difference between back then and now. But like, I look at people who talk to me and say like, "Oh, I lost my virginity at 12," and I go, "Ew, why?" What? Because it's scary to look at like kids that age and think like you're sexually active. Why? Right. I remember having a former teacher of mine when I was about 19, 20, 21 reach out to me and be like, "Hey, I'm dealing with kids who are keeping like used condoms in the backpack. What's that about?" And I'm like, I have no fucking idea. That's weird. That's creepy and weird, and I don't get why we've sexualized kids at this age.
Philippe says
outside that they have literal computer devices in front of them.
Philippe over here has a comment that says taboo is the norm now, and there's a huge culture around not kink shaming. The slippery slope is allowed some of the more extremes to normalize stuff that shouldn't be normalized, like incest and pedophilia. Yeah, I mean, that's one category that, you know, you always see the mother with son category in the or family taboo is a category in the porn sites.
Stepdad with son. I watch gay porn. Trust.
Right. Is this something that, I mean, I don't know. Is this only more prevalent because we have more ways to reach it now? Like when we were kids, right? You had to find a magazine somewhere, right? Or if you were lucky to have Cinemax or something, or get those little blurry lines where you could like flip the channel for 1 second and flip it back and get like a second of side boob, and you were excited as a kid. That was what. But now, any kid can go on their phone and get porn anytime they want.
Can I speak?
Yeah.
Sorry. Yes.
So when I remember when I was young, maybe when I was 19, I worked in a strip club, and there was a guy who worked this was in San Francisco, and it was like kind of like it was like the first women owned. It was called the Lusty Lady. It was the first strip club to ever unionize as well, but this was long before they unionized. And one of the reasons I got fired is because I said it publicly that they should unionize on this billboard we had in the basement. Anyway, this guy I worked with, I remember, told me this is 1990, maybe, no, 89. This is 1989. And he told me this statistic at the time that in Sweden, where hardcore pornography was on TV, and what by law constituted rape was if you had a few drinks and then had sex, that could be construed as rape because you can't give consent.
Oh, wow.
Proper consent if you've had too much alcohol.
Right.
So the pornography is extreme and open to everybody, and the bar for what is considered rape is very low. And the incidence of rape in Sweden at the time, 1989, was very, very low. And juxtaposing that with Utah, where pornography was completely illegal, and rape, the bar for rape was very high. Like there was no such thing as raping your wife because your wife was your property, that kind of thing.
Right.
Pornography is illegal. The incidence of rape was extremely high, especially also abuse of children as well was also very high.
Right.
So, I mean, correlation is not causation. Obviously, we can't make too many judgments from that, but it does seem like it's an important thing that there is a place for people to have fantasies, right? To be able to view material that is inside of them that they don't necessarily feel comfortable talking about or sharing, but that they, have, in their own dark heart or whatever, separate. I mean, I don't want to judge. I think kink shaming is something that we shouldn't do.
Porn. I don't know who's into that, but I know there have to be people.
I think it all boils down to almost always. I think the thing you could take from the Sweden thing is that parents were much more engaged openly with their children's sexuality. Like sex was a part of life, and they didn't hide their own sexuality. They didn't discourage their children from exploring their own or asking questions or anything like that.
And I would say really quickly, Anthony, I would say you tend to see the same sort of thing and the same statistics happen with alcohol in Europe. They are very much more open to alcohol. Kids are exposed to it at a younger age, but the incidences of drunk driving, are nothing like they are here in the United States. And I think it's because exposure. Really quickly, I remember in 1990,
and education from an early age.
Right.
Also,
Exactly.
look at the size of fucking England versus the United States, but whatever.
In 1996, I was a merchant marine for Exxon, and I was in Italy. Our ship was ported up in Italy, and I remember walking into Trieste, and they have like these newsstands, right? So you get your newspaper or your local magazine from these little newsstands that were, every couple of blocks. That was the normal thing, right? But I remember at these newsstands, the porn would be like the third level from the ground. So like right at kids' eye level, you know what I mean? And it wasn't like our covers where it's, things are covered up. I mean, these are like legs spread, like they're doing a can dance, you know what I mean? And it just blew my mind, and I'm not saying anything about anybody's culture. They do things differently.
Yeah.
But being from an American culture, it was definitely an eye opener. And when I went to France, they had nudity on TV and the commercials, and, they would show beaches and stuff, and everybody's topless.
Well, and how cultures nudity versus being sexual versus being just actual is definitely prevalent in those things, right? Like in European cultures, we see a lot of art and we see a lot of statues and we see a lot of things that offer full-on nudity, but it's not sexualized. It's not quite the same. It's not like they're jerking themselves off or they're fingering themselves. It's just a nude body because that's what exists in reality. Right. That there's nothing wrong with the human body. At the same time, how we discuss sexuality is interesting. And I will say today I find this really fun because I happen to see a very old King of the Hill episode where it's about sex ed in schools, talking to like 11-year-olds, and where Peggy has to be the substitute teacher to talk about that. And the whole thing starts off with Peggy and Hank being confronted with like, how I have this permission slip you have to sign as parents for me to be part of this class, and they just outright deny it and say no, that should be the parents' responsibility, and then suddenly becomes Peggy's responsibility to fill the teacher role, and now the whole dynamic is flipped on its head. And it's a big commentary about how like the other generations, and this is really more of an American thing, because when America first was founded, it was by the Puritans, which were a very deeply religious sect that was all about body shame and all that other stuff. That is so deeply soaked into the American culture, especially through children that were born in the 50s, which is where that show was kind of trying to say, like, those kids were born in. There's a lot of commentary throughout it about their parents' inability to express anything about sexuality or the body to their children because they were just so embarrassed by it, right? And now we're in this current revolution of where like we're so overly open that it sexualizes things when it doesn't need to be the case. Like again, like we have the Florida Don't Say Gay bill. I think that's a big, weird, hot topic that could be its own episode altogether. Right. But a lot of people are saying like, oh, it's because you can't like talk about being gay. No, it's just saying that like kindergarten through third graders don't need to be taught about sexuality or gender because they're too young. Like it's not about them. Like kids should just be kids, and then like kids who are developing need to have open and honest discussions about what the human body goes through and how they relate with themselves. And I think a lot of this, again, seeps into what we see now in pornography. It used to be the handyman. It used to be the pizza guy. It used to be this other entity walking into the household. Now it's like the people you live with. And that's bizarre and kind of disturbing. Like, why are we normalizing, like, oh, you should fuck your stepbrother or your stepdad, or you should fuck the family priest? Like, okay, there's a fantasy element to it. It's taboo, but it's
Anthony,
still
hold on. Let's
Mike, disturbing. Like,
and go ahead, Michael. John, what were you going to say?
No, there was Anthony just said so many different things. So now I'm going to go way back to the beginning of when he first started talking. I'll comment on the other stuff too, but I just want to tell this anecdote that I think is kind of funny and very telling about America. Before streaming, I very rarely watched any TV at all. I hardly ever watched TV, and I was except whenever I would visit my family, because what the fuck else are you gonna do? So you sit and watch TV, right?
Yeah.
And I was watching CSI, the original CSI, and there was a woman who had been murdered, of course, and they were trying to track her down to figure out who she was or something like that, and they found out who she was via a serial number on her fake boob, on her implant. And so they showed her naked. But now she's being played by an actual human being, right? It's an actress who's playing the person. But because in the story she was a corpse, it was okay to show her naked breasts.
Oh, wow.
But if it was a mother feeding her child, it would not be okay to show her breasts.
Wow.
And that to me just sums up America. You can show a dead woman's naked body and it's fine, but you can't show a woman,
giving life.
Yeah. So I just thought that was very telling. But then with the Don't Say Gay, I don't really know that much about the legislation. I haven't read it or anything. I have seen the thing that people are doing to kind of counter it, which is like not using any pronouns at all or all that stuff, which I thought was kind of funny. But I would say in terms of
my favorite neutral one is
hang on a second, Anthony. Hang on a second. The thing I think is it's okay. The thing I think is with what Anthony was saying about it, like kids should just not have to worry about sex. But I think that what they're attacking isn't sex. They're attacking love. So they're saying that like by that if a man and a woman being together as a mother and father, that you're not questioning their love. But for some reason, you're questioning the love of two men together. But we're not talking about what they do in their bedroom with either of them. Right, so why should it fucking matter at all?
Right.
So like, you don't have to talk about sexuality. You don't have to talk what people do in their bedrooms where they're sticking their private parts and be able to talk about love. So I think that they're attacking the very concept of a man being with another man or a woman being another woman or trans people or whatever, when in fact, none of that has to be brought up to be able to show two men being in love. You don't have to talk about sex at all to show what love looks like.
That's been my biggest argument, especially having been a former preschool teacher, is that, I don't, a lot of times when, straight couples will talk about, I don't want to see, two men together or two women together. I show them I mirror back their hypocrisy, because it's okay when they see, a man and woman together, but that's only because that's what they grew up with in their society. They don't really see it as the same thing, but from a different angle. And my whole argument has always been, I want my son or other children to know that other different people exist. We don't need to talk about the sexuality of it until they get older and until they're ready to learn about sexuality. But they should know that, sometimes some uncles like other uncles or some aunties like other aunties. We don't need to talk about what they do or why they like them. Just know that these people exist. And when you get older, we can talk about, what the difference between a straight couple or a gay couple is. But, I don't think people should not know people exist.
Sure. I think if you pair that with normalizing the concept of consent so that children learn the concept of consent at a very, very young age, that auntie isn't allowed to come up and grab your cheeks and kiss you if you don't feel like it. Like if you are not comfortable with your auntie coming up and pinching your cheeks and kissing
or giving you lots of kisses on the cheek,
you can say, I don't like this, and then auntie will stop doing it. that should be taught at a very, very young age. That should be like one of the first things that kids are getting taught. Well, yeah.
Can we touch on that?
Yes.
Yeah,
okay,
sure.
So what is your earliest age of what consent should be explained to you?
I think it should be as soon as you can explain something to them, it should be taught to them.
You know, I will say, Anthony, and
okay, but like, okay, so here's the thing. Can I please interject?
Yeah.
So here's where I'm going to come with this. This is what I'm going to say on this. So I get where you're coming from to an extent. However, I don't think that there's anything wrong with healthy emotional displays of affection. And I don't know where you're suddenly coming to this concept of kids know, like, I don't like you touching me because like you're happy to see me. There's a completely different thing from a family member's being like, how I want to hug and kiss you versus someone touching you inappropriately. And that's where the whole concept of consent's coming from.
Well,
right?
I personally would disagree
am I
with that.
mistaken on this?
Anthony, I would personally disagree on that. And let me tell you why. And I'll give you a couple examples as well. When I was a preschool teacher, that was actually one of the first fundamental things that I taught my children of any level. In fact, we used to do this thing that some parents thought was really stupid, but I fully believed in. It was the philosophy of the school. But even when I was in the 6 month, the 0 to 6 month old babies, if a baby was playing on the floor and a baby had a stinky diaper, I would go up to the baby, even though the baby could not speak, right? I would kneel down and look at the baby and say, oh my goodness, you smell like you have a stinky diaper. Can I help you? So even before they could speak, we were establishing the fact with our learners that people have to get permission to touch you. And it's because in some cultures, in a lot of Asian cultures, you'll get kisses and hugs from aunties and things like that, right? Which is socially acceptable. But if it makes you uncomfortable, you should not have to be subjected to it, because a lot of times I'm not saying that those things are dangerous, but that leads to a person learning that it's not okay to have control of their own body. And so later on, this person may end up going to a bar and somebody puts their arm around them and they don't like it, but they've been conditioned not to say anything about it because, it's a nice touch. It's not a dangerous touch. But my argument is anytime you feel uncomfortable, and I don't care if you're 5 years old or 75 years old, anytime anybody is making you uncomfortable, especially with their touch, you should not feel bad about saying, please don't touch me. That's my position.
And also to add on that, what I was going to say what I was going to say when I was first saying that about the consent was there was a second side to that, or a second part to that. Was the first thing is teach children consent, the concept of consent from a young age, and also normalize the idea that men can show physical affection to other men, women can show physical affection to other women, and that it's okay. And I think if you pair those two things together, consent as well as showing what appropriate, like physical affection, what love looks like when it's physicalized in a non-sexual way, I think those two things together is what we need more.
I kissed my baby boy all the time when he was younger, but if at any point he, when it became obvious that he didn't like me giving him a kiss when I dropped him off at preschool because the other kids are looking, I stopped doing it. He didn't need to tell me, but if my son for some reason tells me I don't like it when you do that, Dad, I'm gonna stop just to show him that I respect his personal space, regardless of whether I am his father or not.
Can I please chime in here then?
Yeah, go ahead.
So there's a huge significant difference between familial members versus teachers and other people, right? Like there's a big difference there. A teacher does not necessarily have any given right to touch or do anything to a child outside of just instruct them, right? But at the same time, when I was dropped off at preschool, even though I was potty trained, there were kids that had to be changed. It would be negligent if some teacher didn't change a child who had a dirty diaper when they're given that trust and instruction to do so. I mean, that's a weird realm where we're kind of like splitting hairs here.
Well, nobody would ever not change a baby's diaper.
Just explain a couple of things. Well, but I'm saying you just gave the example of like, is it okay for me to change you? And why does the child have a say in that matter, right? At the same time, we don't need to normalize the behavior between the sexes because it's nothing to do with them. We could say that, okay, oh yes, Uncle Bailey and Uncle Riley, they're together because they love each other. The only thing we ever have to question the kid is like, what is there anything wrong with that? No. Okay, cool. That's all you have to say about the matter. When it comes to
that's what I'm
what
saying.
we're talking about, like incentive touch, I will say it like this: like I had an uncle that like he would tickle me all the time, and I don't like being tickled. I don't like being tickled at all. At the same time, I don't think that there was anything wrong with what he was doing, because he wasn't doing it maliciously or in a way that was meant to harm me, whether he realized or not. Like, I don't like being tickled.
Right.
It's still somewhat of a positive thing I have with him. At the same time, I'm going to tell you right now, I mentioned this earlier, can we touch back on it later, about rape, because I have my own instance where I'm pretty certain I was roofied. And I know that there was this moment where I was taken advantage of. And it's one of those things that I have to introspectively look at as a whole, because I was a grown adult. I was in a club over 21. I did get intoxicated. I went home with this boy, and I was doing so in the intention of hooking up. I did not think, though, that I had been drugged. And the only reason that I think I was is because I had a friend who was roofied, who explained their situation and like how when they threw up, they saw a lot of red. I had that happen in his space. I remember doing sexual things and then passing out and then waking up and having things happening to me I did not consent to. At the same time, I woke up that next day. I had no idea where I was. I didn't know his name. I had to look at his debit card to say, like, okay, John, this was an experience. I'll see you later. And then I took off. But it's a hugely different set of experiences, right?
Wait. Before you go on, I'm trying to understand. Are you trying to say that that's okay? Or are you saying that that's not okay?
No.
Like, are you trying to say
that?
No,
I don't think that it's okay. I don't think it's okay, but I also know full well that I went into an experience where I became vulnerable. I went into something without the proper knowledge of or protection or any set of defenses. Again, the world's a scary, dangerous place. And this is why I don't want people to allow those things to be acceptable. But I think that there's a huge difference between what happened to me just there and saying like, oh, we need to let children know about what is consent. Because, I mean, I had a safety word growing up as a kid with my mom not to ever leave with a stranger. I think that parents need to always have that open communication with kids about, hey, you're not allowed to interact with people I don't know. And you should always be open to communicate with me if somebody says or does something with you. It's not okay to keep secrets.
Okay, so I don't know if you're aware of this, but the reality of the situation is that most children who are taken advantage of and abused are not abused by strangers. As much as you want to make jokes about and I do it, I'm not saying you, but I mean, just as much as we want to make jokes about Catholic priests and all these other things, the majority of people are molested by auntie or uncle or their best friend's older brother who they go to visit. It's not by strangers. It's by people that they should be able to trust. Sometimes, a lot of times, they're told, if you say anything, I'm going to hurt your family, or I'm going to do this to your dog, or what have you. And because of their love for their family members, they don't say anything. So I will agree to disagree with you. And this is why I love this show. Honestly, this show for me is about being able to talk about things that are a little bit challenging and really getting everybody's perspective. And it doesn't mean that you're right. Doesn't mean that I'm right. Doesn't mean that John's right. But what it does mean is that we can start to understand why people might see things differently. Personally, myself, if my child is uncomfortable with anybody
with you on this
for any reason, I don't want my child being around that person, even if it's just they get a weird feeling about this person. And I'm going to, because my son and I have an open relationship, and I feel like we do talk about things. I've said to him, if you're ever in a bad situation, you text Dad, or you call me, and I'll come get you anytime. You don't have to, if you go to your friend's house and you start to feel uncomfortable, you don't have to listen to somebody just because they're an adult. And don't ever listen to anybody if they say they're going to do anything bad to you or your family. If you tell me right away, and I will get that shit handled.
I would love it if we could have a woman's perspective on the show as well. I think that would be a very welcome and necessary addition to this conversation. I think it's an important thing.
Hey, Belle, are you still on? I see Belle in the chats. If you're on, we can throw Belle a link, seeing how that's the only female I see on right now. Hold on. I'm going to pop. You guys talk for a second. I'm going to pop off and throw her a link.
Okay. I also think, if the
I got it.
the half asleep Ezra.
All right, Ezra's taking care of that.
But I think that, like, if you can imagine a world, like, not just where every kid has been taught about consent, but once those kids are older, like when you're talking about the older brothers that were doing the molesting and stuff like that, all of those people have also learned it as well. Has that lessened their likelihood to make that transgression? I don't know. I mean, I think if you start educating people from an early age with these concepts, because it seems like I was saying with I have no idea what it's like in Sweden now, and I have no idea what the truth of this anecdote that this guy gave, but I did see other anecdote or other studies like that about Sweden, about how they had sexual conduct on TV that could be regularly viewed by anybody, but that they have a much greater level of respect for physical autonomy between people, for the concept of consent. So I think that educating people in that way goes a long way I think education basically is the key, is the foundational solution to almost every single problem that we have in our society. Right. And the fact that, like, what our society is doing, in fact, is dismantling the education system, effectively, by it only being able to be propped up by the fact that underpaid teachers are paying for all their own supplies is fucking ridiculous.
Right. Yeah, that's a whole different. Teachers' pay is a whole different discussion.
Argue that the education system is beautiful. It's not.
Right.
Okay, so on that subject of the education system, I don't know what your guys' sex ed education was like, but again, I just watched an episode about this that was very poignant and very relevant and kind of funny in the sense of, it's like, yeah, people don't know how to talk about this stuff. But I remember my very first sex ed class in like 4th grade, and it was done by sex. So the boys had their own class, girls had their own class, but I had a female instructor. And I remember her like trying to talk to us about erections as though she knows anything about them. And the comment was made like, oh, don't worry, it doesn't hurt. And I'm like, Well, it does after like 50 minutes. It does. I don't know. Okay, whatever, teacher. Like it's one of those weird moments where it's like, and it does come into question of like, when do we discuss these things? Again, there's a difference between stranger danger and what we're talking about with consent. Like, I guess that's a way of we define these things, right? So when you're talking about like informing children about consent, what definition are you using for that versus a sexual one? Because that's what I was discussing with my story just now, was a sexual interaction.
Well,
and how it relates to
that's
consent.
The thing. It has to be relative, right? So if you're talking to a 4-year-old child, I'm not talking, hey, what's up, Bill Burns? If I'm talking to a 4-year-old child, to me, consent is consent, period. If that 4-year-old child does not feel comfortable around a male or a female or a particular teacher or caregiver, I'm not going to ask, I'm not going to bring up things about sexuality. At that point, as they get older, when sexuality is more appropriate, you could talk about those definite things. But if a child at that age is uncomfortable,
but if they don't like someone because of their hair, is that okay?
I also think you get into a situation where you have like my niece was terrified of my beard when she was a baby and would cry every time she saw me.
Right.
But yeah, I think that, you kind of start getting into as well where like perhaps somebody makes you uncomfortable because the parents are uncomfortable with them, or, it could be that a brother and sister have been fighting about something, or they disagree about something in the family, and the niece and nephew of one of, or the child of one of them is then uncomfortable with the other. And so I mean that gets a little slippery, I think, with the uncomfortable, in terms of like, I think you can have a discussion about that discomfort to find out what the cause of it is as well. Anyway, let's turn over the floor to Belle.
Say something. As a mother myself of a 7-year-old, I get it. Like, my son has separation anxiety, and when he cries for his grandparents, but I'm not going to teach him about sexuality or anything until he gets older, because he's 7 years old and he wouldn't understand it right now.
Right.
And I feel that as a mother, it's not necessary until he hits like teenagehood and puberty and stuff, and then he asks like those questions.
Well, let me ask you this question, Belle. Let's say he came up to you one night, he's 7 years old, and he says, I don't like it when grandma gives me kisses on the cheek when she comes over. Is that something that how do you handle that situation? Do you allow grandma to continue to letting kiss him in the cheek? Or do you tell grandma, hey, Logan's really not comfortable with that. Please don't do that anymore.
I'd ask why.
I would,
right. That's good.
I would ask why, and I would ask, have you noticed Logan doesn't like it when you kiss him? He is getting older now. He doesn't need to be kissed like a little baby anymore. Can you please not do that? And I would direct it to my mom, and I would say, you know what, you need to knock it off.
Right. Right.
I mean, if it's inappropriate, maybe.
Well, but I mean, okay, in your case, Anthony, let's say your grandma.
There's a huge difference between like familial affection and like sexual exploitation from an uncle. Like, there's huge, vast differences there, and I'm not going to skirt around this. Like, there's a huge difference if you trust your family member to watch your child and that they're okay. But if like you see that your kid comes back like clearly not the same child that you left them off with, that's when you ask the question, what happened? And that's when you go into those deeper things. Did somebody what happened? If they say, well, I can't tell you, that's when you pry. You have to ask the child, why? What makes it uncomfortable when Nona gives you kisses on the cheek? Because there's nothing terrible or demonstrable about that. There's nothing to shame about that. If like a grandmother's like, I want to kiss your cheeks, like that's your grandmother showing you love. That there's a huge difference between that and someone touching you inappropriately. Can we not find that
nobody is saying
that consent? Nobody's saying
there's not a difference between those things. Nobody is saying that at all. We're saying that they're both about, consent is consent. That's all that matters, is that consent is consent, and teaching children that they have control over their bodies.
Like that, and it's wrong, right?
Sure, you can ask the child why they don't like it or whatever. You can do that, but respecting the physical autonomy of another human being is what's important.
Whenever you flush the toilet because the noise is too loud. Is there some point where we can tell kids like, "Hey, knock it off," and like that's fine, versus like that's not okay? There's a difference of that's okay because it's not hurting you versus that's not okay because that's hurting you. There is a line. That's what I'm trying to tell you right now. That's the position I'm coming from.
Yeah,
it's not to say that they're the same.
It's a tough one. It's a tough one. I will tell you,
it's different when it's family, and it's different when it's a complete stranger doing it to a child. Now, if it's a complete stranger,
yes, but even Dan said most sexual predators are like more likely to be the family, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's different. What I'm saying is different when it's your family member and you know these people than it being a complete stranger and the child doesn't know the stranger. The child hasn't been around the stranger.
Absolutely.
And the stranger is being.
And that's stranger danger. That's teaching kids stranger danger. There's a huge difference. I taught martial arts with kids, and I would talk to them about this.
Right. Honestly, I think
God, we all know.
We talk about stranger danger, but I think that's really kind of like, I don't know. It's almost like Nancy Reagan in the anti-drugs of the 80s. I feel like it was just this mantra we were taught. But I will say, I was molested by an auntie when I was growing up. In the Vietnamese culture, it is very close knit. You have a lot of hugs and kisses, and you have tons of aunties and uncles. The thing is that when it was happening to me, I honestly didn't know it was a bad thing. You know what I mean? I didn't have anybody around me telling me that I should be looking out for these and that what was happening to me was not acceptable. You know what I mean? I just thought that this is what happened. So, this is an auntie that when my mother would, this happened to me when I was about 5 and 6 years old. But when my mother started working for Exxon when I was 9 and 10, she would leave me with this auntie while she was away at sea for 2 or 3 months at a time, never knowing what had happened to me when I was younger with this auntie. And again, like I didn't know that it was a bad thing, that I should say something. So I do think that I'm a little bit hesitant when we say it's different when things are family and when things are strangers, because anybody can have bad intentions. Go ahead, no.
I'm hesitant on it too. I was raped by my cousin, who is actually my son's birth father, believe it or not. So,
oh wow,
yeah. So I have a really sensitive and trauma of that, but I understand where you're coming from, Van, and
I've known a lot of one of my good friend females was raped by her older brother. She was, I want to say 9 or 10, and he was 15 or 16 or something like that. I don't know if it was a half brother or if it was, I mean, it doesn't really make a difference what it was, but these things do happen. As much as we want to think things are different in the family, unfortunately, not everybody has that same, tight-knit family or people that can't even imagine that happening.
Yeah.
Hey, give me just a quick second.
Oh, don't get me wrong. I don't have a tight family.
Say nope to dope. Yeah, the 80s.
No, check the private chat.
Oh, okay. Okay. All righty.
Yes, I get you.
So the whole point of the okay, so let's relate this back all to really what the original point of the topic was, which was that all these kinds of different categories in these porns, you know, you've even got like anime categories and cosplayers and you've got scary porn. You know, do these things lead to more dangerous places? I get concerned with the channel that says 18-year-old, right? Because to me, my thought is the only reason it says 18 is because legally it can't say 14, right? Like I'm thinking these people that are going to that category probably will take the youngest person they can find. But because the law says you have to be 18, you know, that's the category.
I think what's the question? How things have gotten fetishized. They are.
Right. Do you think that's dangerous that they become so fetishized, or do you think it's actually a good outlet for people? Hey, really quickly, you guys keep talking. I'm gonna pop off for 1 second. I'll be right back on.
Okay.
Keep talking though.
I think that it could be a bad thing because, I mean, like, come on, a 14-year-old or a kid could find this stuff, and it being 18 or older, there's ways that you can get into the stuff. And yeah.
Well, there's nothing that verifies jack shit. You just click yes, and there you go.
Yeah, exactly. I think it needs to be like more secure and protected. If it's really 18 and older, then
I think the
90%
fact
of
that we don't
everything we're talking
normalize.
about tonight, especially in the last 30 minutes,
Yeah.
it has a lot to do with parental involvement with their children. And with what we just heard as the example, I don't think I've ever known a single moment in my entire life that my mother went away for 3 months. I know that I visited my grandmother like on weekends. I know that I went to my dad's house every other week. They worked together. I had step parents. I had interactions where I was with them. At the same time, there was never any single point in my life that my mother was not very much involved with letting me know what's not okay, what is okay, what to do in case of certain. There's a difference between prepping children with the tools that they need to engage in a world that is not okay, versus just being like, hey, we need to have this blanket conversation with everyone because, you know, that's how it works. There's a lot about the family unit and how they engage with their children from 30 years ago from what it is today. And that's a big, big teller in what we're talking about right now, especially with all these other things. Kids have access to adult entertainment at the press of a button on a phone because every kid has a phone. They're always in front of a tablet. They're always in front of these devices. And are their parents engaged in watching what they're actually looking at? No, because they're working 2 jobs because no one can afford to fucking live these days. Those are the bigger issues that are falling into these categories and making these other aspects more prevalent.
Right. I actually think it's by design and on purpose. I think there's a bigger plan and a bigger picture for the dumbing down of America. And I almost feel like America is like a social experiment for the rest of the planet.
I believe that
we can make Americans stupid. We can make everybody stupid. And look how our Western culture is spreading. Go ahead. What are you going to say, John?
Well, first of all, I do think that it was very clearly, it was done right out in the open that education system was defunded.
Dismantled
openly by the Republicans, but and then, you know, not supported by the Democrats. Democrats were also captured by the corporate corporate overlords in the 90s through Bill Clinton and the New Democrats. But Anyway, I think that the culture, I think it also boils down to the culture still being primarily a Puritan culture. Right. And so as long as we have this like kind of shaming aspect to sexuality, you're always going to be having these, kind of like the secret place. And like, so when you have it, like, I'll keep going back to this anecdote that I'm not even sure is real, but if you go back to like the whole Sweden thing, and, where sexuality is much more open and on TV, and young people are raised as real, just feeling like this is a part of being a human being, without it being some weird, dirty thing that you should be ashamed of. I think that would also probably help a lot of things as well. But
I remember there was a great commercial on MTV. I want to say it was like in the late 90s or 2000s. And it had it was in black and white. And it had these two cowboys, and they're looking mean at each other, and, they're stepping towards each other, and it looks like they're about to draw. And then all of a sudden they go up and they start dancing together. And then the tagline is, would you have rather have seen them shoot each other? And that had always been such a powerful image to me. But, I think it's crazy that we could turn on the TV at 9 or 10 a.m. and watch a show where people are getting shot or wars and things. But it's awful to see two people in bed, or to see a naked body, which I can go see at the museum, and it's considered art if I go there.
Yeah. I think Ezra is getting about ready to pass out.
We are coming up to that 2 hour mark. Anyways, this has definitely been a fun and all over the place show tonight. Belle, did you have anything you wanted to say? Like, you came in right here at the end. We were looking for a woman's input, and then we're running out of time. Did you have anything you want to say? Or
I think you got my input as a mother myself and a woman, that we got to teach our kids something at some point that I don't think we should teach them about sex or anything until they're like older.
Do you think that
my take out of
there's a filter?
Do you think that consent, just a general idea of consent as in ownership over your own body, would automatically cover any kind of sex stuff, sexuality, right? It would automatically, as a blanket, cover that. I mean, it would cover physical altercations. It would cover sexual, touching or whatever, as well as anything at all.
I don't think that. I do teach my son this. Okay, if someone touches you inappropriately, you say that's not okay. You tell them to back off. If they keep doing it, you come to me and you tell them, and then I will contact their parents and say, what's the deal here? And
I told my kid to knock him out. We teach him kind of keep you have to tell people and say, please don't touch me. But if they are bullying you, you are not gonna let them continue to bully you. You have to stand up for yourself.
Yeah, and that's what I
let a kid tell me that they're getting bullied.
That's why I'm teaching Logan. I said, if someone is picking on you, you need to go to the teacher, you need to go to an adult, you need to go to the principal, and you need to tell someone instead of letting people bully you, and you need to stick up for yourself.
Right.
And tell them to knock it off. You need to use your voice here. And then if someone is touching you inappropriately, you need to tell them to knock it off too. And he asked me questions about it and stuff too. And this is a 7-year-old boy. It's kind of awkward for me. I'm not going to lie, but I try to explain it the best I can as a parent. So.
Right. All right, guys. Hey, we're gonna get started getting cleaned up here. I want to finish up. I'm gonna get a final thought from everybody about X-Men and about XXX. But I do want to thank our special guests that have come on tonight. We had Banana Hammock Josh, who was here earlier from 95.1 FM radio out in Reno. That is Pop Culture Kaboom. I want to thank Belle Burns, Miss Disney Princess, for coming on tonight and giving us a bit of a woman's perspective. And of course, Mr. John Michael, coming all the way from Korea. We always appreciate your input and your in-depth knowledge of the X-Men for tonight. And then, of course, your main host there, Anthony, Ezra, and myself. Ezra, who's falling asleep backstage right now. So we're going to get wrapped up. Anthony, final thoughts and where people can find you.
Well, again, we didn't talk about it all today, but so my show's coming back on the 13th, this next Wednesday. We've been off for the last 2 weeks for the remodel of the club. I'm excited because I have 5 performers with me. A lot of my regulars. Sir Vix is coming back. I have a couple of drag kings. I have a couple of drag queens. I have a burlesque performer. It's going to be a lot of fun. So if you want to check out the only drag show in Lodi, come check us out. As far as final thoughts on tonight's topics, again, Rogue's my go-to ride or die. I love that girl. She's a Southern Belle. She can hit hard. She flies. She got backstory. She got all sorts of other ties. She's an ultimate mutant because she can take anyone's power and use it against them. As far as our second topic, again, I think there's a big difference on what we filter out with children versus older kids, and that there's a huge role for parents to display what is good touch and bad touch. On the subject of bullying, as someone who's bullied a lot as myself, when day comes, I'm lucky enough to have kids and they're old enough and they're experienced bullies. I'm going to say, you're going to talk to your teacher, right? Did you talk to your teacher? They say yes. Okay. If it still happens, I'm going to talk to the teacher. And then once it still happens after that, I'm going to give my kid full permission to kick the fucking shit out of that bully. And when he gets suspended or she gets suspended, good. Did my kid talk to you? Yes. Did I talk to you? Yes. Then why didn't you stop it? Right. So we need to look at adults in positions of power to have better authority of making sure that kids are safe. We as parents should always make sure that our kids are safe. We as a society should be more aware of the other side. So those are my final thoughts.
Right. Belle,
but and that's what I think too. Like, if the teacher is not taking care of it or anything of the bully, then I'll take action. I'll go to the school board, and we'll see what happens if you even have a job the next.
Oh, I'll kick the other fucking kid's parents' ass. Are you kidding me?
Belle, do you have any place?
I'm gonna whoop their dad's ass and say, "Hi, did you not like this?"
Belle, do you have any places people can contact you and find you if they want to find more of your where you're going to be at in your Disney adventures?
You can contact me here on Facebook at Belle Burns, or you can contact me over on my Instagram at @Belle Princess Belle. Sorry,
wonderful.
It up. So again, that I am.
And what's your favorite X-Men, Belle? What's your favorite X-Men?
Wolverine. I named my son after it.
Wolverine. All right, John. It's up to you now. Last thoughts for the night. Your favorite X-Men, and how can people find you and your work?
Well, it's funny because I already said I think my 2 favorites are Wolverine and Rogue. I think they both have the best backstories, the best tragedy at the heart of their characters. I just think they're the most compelling of the X-Men. Magneto maybe fits in there as well. I know he's not an X-Men, but yeah, like he's got a great backstory too. But you can see me, you can find me on Instagram at Sudden A. But I think you can just search John D. Michaels on Instagram, and also on YouTube, you can just search John D. Michaels and you'll find me somewhere. And regarding all that other stuff, that was a discomforting conversation. It's always a kind of a harsh one. That's why I also feel I don't have kids, and I'm 50-year-old cishet guy. I think it's this is the place for other people to be having their opinions heard more, which is why I asked for a woman to be brought in. I think that I'm so thankful I don't have kids in this world. I have to say, it's. I mean, I respect that other people do, but it scares me, the idea. So it's such a scary. Yeah. But because I don't have kids, I can just kind of sit back and watch it all unfold and kind of be fascinated. Frightened, fascinated, excited, all kind of rolled into one. But I can't imagine if I had kids, I would just be chewing my nails out every day. Right. So more, I don't know what to say, but power to you guys, being able to handle it.
All right. Ezra, are you still there? I see you look like you are completely drained. I don't know if you got a favorite X-Men? Anything to say besides good night?
Good night. Favorite X-Men is Cyclops. Just I know the reason I said before was told that I was wrong, but at least from what I've seen in the movies, he's, in my opinion, is probably not as strong as like Rogue and Dark Phoenix and stuff like that. But
hunky.
He's pretty strong.
Well, he's the mainstay leader of the X-Men for good reason. He's a good character. Don't get me wrong.
Exactly. So he's probably he is my favorite X-Men.
And how important he was when the comics were coming out. How important his backstory was in terms of the Cold War and everything, to be able to view somebody from there in a positive light.
Right.
I'm not going to touch on the other subject at all. Go to kybercave.com, buy sabers. Go to youtube.com/Kyber Cave Productions. Every 50 subscribers we get, we'll be giving away another saber on our other show, Saber Rattle. Also, the outro for tonight will be the advertisement for our guest this week, who is Mary Gibbs, the voice actress of Boo.
Woohoo!
For Monsters, Inc. So.
Yay, Mary!
Yay, Mary! I'm so excited for that.
She's also our flow artist for this week, so yay.
She's pulling double duty.
Double duty. Go to twitch.tv/Kyber Cave Productions. That'll get you entries into giveaways. Like, comment, subscribe, both on YouTube and Twitch.
I want to see how many people love Ezra's beard in the likes and comments.
Looking very handsome.
Facebook.com/Kyber Cave Productions. I know a lot of you were watching on there today. That is all the webcast productions that we will be having, as well as possibly some behind the scenes stuff from the Kyber Cave itself. And then go to Facebook.com/Kyber Cave, and that will be where you'll get updates and more stuff about the actual storefront.
Woo. And we have an Instagram now that I just started.
We have two Instagrams. We have at
Kyber Cave and Kyber Cave Productions.
Yes, at Kyber Cave and at Kyber Cave Productions. There'll be more behind the scenes stuff on Kyber Cave Productions too. So,
all right, my favorite X-Men is Nightcrawler. Nightcrawler because he was one of the first X-Men that was different outside. Like, their abilities weren't just inside. He was physically deformed, but he still grew up with like a good attitude and is still like one of the inspirations of the team. And he just got really cool powers. As far as the second topic, consent first always is my belief. And that's what I love about the show. I love that it's a place where we can talk about things that are a little more uncomfortable, because people aren't. I think some of the topics we talk about, people aren't talking about, and that's what is actually hurting them. So
let's do something comfortable next time, though.
Yeah.
Let's have a palate cleanser next time. Okay.
Hey, you guys throw up ideas on the board.
Let's have something where we don't all need therapy afterwards, right?
He's Mesquite's son.
Right, in the movies, right?
Yeah.
But he stinks too, right? Doesn't he smell?
When he moves, when he does his teleportation, it's the smell of brimstone.
Yeah.
Which is supposedly what hell smells like.
Brimstone, sulfur.
All right, y'all. We're gonna let Ezra get to bed. I love you guys all. Thank you for everybody who tuned in tonight. I always love seeing all the comments on the board. Don't forget.
Thanks for joining us, Belle.
Yeah, and thank you, Belle. Don't forget, we will be back here this Sunday at 7 p.m. And just like Ezra said, check out our website. Peace, y'all.
Toodaloo.
Bye, everyone.
Oh yeah, roll that commercial.
Oh, well, hello there. What's your name?
Mike Wazowski.